Canada is calm, tranquil, peaceful. The Canadians graze in the open fields, build dams, and create fast food reviews. Things are perfect, just as they have been for many years and many years to come. Son of a
Alright, so what's up? What's up with all this, eh? Why are there trucks everywhere and why is everyone so mad? Well, it's kinda political, and there's no word more gross than that, so I'm just gonna do a quick little lightning round to get everyone to speed while giving it the respect the topic deserves. Okay, so it all started on January 20th, 2022, which was the day of the regulation saying that all truckers crossing the Canadian-American border would need proof of vaccination was to come into effect. Some of the truckers didn't like this. They decided to hold a protest by driving from BC, blocking major trade transits along the way, here, and here, as well as the Parliament, just to send a message home. Their plan was to honk their horns, get in the way of all transit, and generally be as annoying as possible. Though, as the protest went on, it became more of a protest against vaccines rather than the initial trucker thing. Then, a subset of those guys wanted to do a more radical thing, where they wanted to do a light coup with the request of removal of Canada's current PM, Justin Trudeau. These protests continued for another 2 weeks, and there still was no major development made on either side. So, to put it simply, Canada was under siege, it was under lockdown. Canada was in need of a hero, and that hero came in the form of a group comprised of 18 men with chiseled bodies, great fashion, and large cocks. And this is their anthem.
18 naked cowboys in the showers at Ramranch. Big heart throbbing wanting to be sucked.
That song is the 2012 classic Ramranch produced by the Toronto-based Grant MacDonald. It was originally made due to a Nashville radio deciding against the airing of any of Grant's music due to their homoerotic undertones. So, Grant did the most logical step any other Canadian would have done and created a song so over-the-top gay as an act of defiance and a firm middle finger. While the radio didn't air Ramranch either, it must have struck a chord with Grant, as for a reason only he knows, he didn't stop there, and as of August 2022, the writing of this video, he has gone and created a whopping total of 613 different versions of the original song, with no signs of stopping. So I bet you're wondering, what does a gay cowboy song have to do with the Canadian protests? Well, let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone that's been living in these areas. For weeks, there was constant blockades of major routes, which made travel to work and stores much more difficult. Walking around these areas were loud, and some would even have their masks ripped off. And worst of all was the incessant honking. It would go on and on and on, and finally, some people just had enough. And that's how the counter-protest was formed, and in a true Canadian fashion, it was fought with swears.
Hey, just make sure it's clear. Fuck you. Shut up. Shut up and go fuck yourself.
And passive aggressiveness.
You want her to take your ass away from you, but you're gonna put that in everybody's ears? Yeah. Just with all your horns.
And while those two are most definitely heroes, there's one group of counter-protesters that showed what a little coordinated effort and lewd cowboys could accomplish, and that group was the Ramranchresistance. While Ramranch has always been somewhat of an internet joke song due to its graphic material and catchy tune, it was specifically chosen to be the song of the resistance because the organizers believed that the overlap of people in the Freedom Convoy and the people that are homophobic to be quite high. Plus, with Ramranch's history as a song of defiance and its Canadian roots, it made it truly the perfect song to annoy the Freedom Convoy with. And so, the Ramranchresistance took form and used its forces en masse to target the Freedom Truckers where they could hurt the most: their communications. Because at the time, the Freedom Convoy were using an app called Zello for the large majority of their telecommunications because it was 1, free to download, and 2, easy to use, allowing for instant communication with anyone in the area. And for those unaware, Zello kinda works like a traditional radio. You push the button, and you and only you can talk until you let go of it. It also had the added benefit of instant messaging and also recording the speaker for playback. It was perfect for the Freedom Convoy as it allowed any new members to join the comms without trouble, because to join a Zello, all you need is the lobby name. Zello allowed them to exchange the information they needed quickly, most of which was just general necessities like food, water, and warmth, along with some vehicle repair and to say where police were located. But it was that simplistic joining method that would ultimately be their undoing, as the chats were slowly beginning to get flooded with Ramranch Resistance members. There was varying degrees of trolling done by the Ramranch Resistance. There was the classic of just blaring Ramranch.
Ladies and gentlemen, some singing, some jokes for the children.
18 naked cowboys in the showers at Ramranch. Big head driving.
Playing a risque ad.
The channels that have more information on that as well.
Welcome to the cum zone. Only come inside anime girls.
But best of all were the long cons.
Just to keep up the music theme too, I'd love to share a freedom song later. I've got my old guitar here ready to go. But yeah, let's hear that anthem first. I'd love to hear that.
I'm with that. Go for it.
Canada the Proud.
Okay then, sounds good. Here we go, guys. How many roads must the convoy drive down before you reach the Ramranch? Yes, and how many seas?
Unbelievable, guys. You give that guy respect and to play a song, and then what happens?
But ultimately, it never really mattered how successful a trolling attempt was, because due to Zello having it be so only one person can talk at a time, all the Freedom Convoy members tuned in would not only have to listen to their spam, but they also couldn't stop it until either the Ramranch Resistance member stopped, which wouldn't happen, or the member was banned. The influx of ranchers made it so that the Freedom Convoy needed to invest some of their manpower towards moderation, to filter out the trolls and keep the topic focused on the blockade. However, that was immediately countered by just how easy it was to create new accounts.
You guys blocked me 2 minutes ago, I'm back on, this is my speed run, 2 minutes and 12 seconds back on trolling you again. It's really, really easy to set up a VPN.
So it became a constant back and forth between the two parties. A Ramrancher would come in and waste as much of their time and communication as possible.
Hey,
break, I have a serious situation on the ground. There's about 10,000 fucking retards walking around Ottawa.
They would get banned, but then they would just come right back with another more elaborate troll.
But, you know, don't bug me. Don't bug us. Don't come in here. Don't try and troll us in here because you're making yourselves look bad. Okay, this is all about truckers. It's about people.
How wet is your pussy? Exactly, man. Shut the fuck up, nerd.
So, the problem the Freedom Convoy was having was that the more popular their channels got, the more trolls they got. So while they could reach more of their own, they were also much more likely to hear the chant of the ranch. And while smaller and more restrictive groups were less likely to be interfered with, they were also less capable of coordinating their supplies and countering police resistance to any meaningful scale. So, it was either more effective comms but more trolls, or less effective comms and less trolls, both of which weren't ideal. And from what I've seen, it seems like most of the channels decided to go with the former and just deal with the trolls. Now with the added defense, the Ramranch Resistance knew that they couldn't just get away with jamming their comms all the time, they needed more. So to spice it up a little, they decided to test their luck at confusing the convoy and getting them to spread as much false information as possible. How did they do this, you ask? Well, they did this by offering fake help, like bringing some gas.
I got a group of guys here that can help haul that gas. There's about 18 of us down here at Ramranch.
Offering free food and shelter.
Hey, what's this Ramranch I keep hearing about? Does anybody know where to go to that?
Negative, come back. Ramranch, can you fill me in there? I'm not familiar, I'm sorry.
Yeah, apparently there's free food for all truckers and lodging at Ramranch.
And even vehicle maintenance.
that person, but I need proof that they are a mechanic due to all the trolls, please.
Caitlin, there was a gentleman that just came through and said there are mechanics at Ramranch.
It got to the point where some members of the convoy couldn't even tell if it was a real place or not.
It's a troll guy.
Well, actually, the Ramranch is actually a location, just saying.
That's what I thought, because I just talked to a lady that said she spent the night there, so it can't be not real.
I'm ticketed. The trolls are just manipulating the location.
To help with this new approach, many ranches were taking to Google Maps and changing the names of prominent stops for the convoy to Ram Ranch related titles. At this point, the Ram Ranch Resistance began getting noticed by mainstream media, which only bumped their numbers up even more. So to focalize their ranks, the Ram Ranch Resistance had made its own website. On that site, it stated their mission, has some links to donate to charities, and some other stuff, but sadly I can't find it. Aside from that screenshot, the only other thing I was able to find was this picture using the Wayback Machine, and while it may not have the 18 boys that I'm looking for, it still delivers on that rancher vibe. So touche, I guess. I'm off topic. The point I was trying to make was that the more people were hearing about the Ram Ranch Resistance versus the convoy, the more they wanted to be a part of it too, which resulted in more and more trolling. Ram Ranch was so commonplace in these chats that the poor innocent people that had no idea what it was were looking it up on Google.
I went on and I found out the song was real. It's on YouTube.
Most of which were not a big fan of it, but some liked it a little bit more than others.
Ram Ranch sounds like a good Saturday night in my truck.
The Ram Ranch Resistance got popular enough that it made its way back to the singer-songwriter Grant McDonald, and proud of his song's usage for the counter-protest, stepped in and made an entirely new song titled Ottawa Truckers.
Yo, what do we see? At Parliament Hill, Ottawa, Canada, trucker boys, in their big rigs, in their sleepers, stark naked, holy jeepers creepers.
It has very similar vibes to Ram Ranch. At this point, the amount of trolling in these Zello chants were reaching an all-time high. The longer it went on, the more trolling they had to deal with. The more experienced members of the Freedom Convoy were simply getting tired of the trolling.
Welcome to the Cum Zone. Only come.
Well, that's the last of the Cum Zone that I want to listen to. I wish you guys all the best, but I've spent too much time trying to block trolls in this channel, so I'm going to sign out and delete this app.
I'm out of here too. It's too much. Ram Ranch is supposed to be for families, and I don't know why the truckers are allowing all this Ram Ranch every single channel.
And the mods weren't having it any better either, as they were essentially full-time solely on countering Ram Ranch attacks.
The channel was unresponsive, let's say. Yesterday afternoon for me, I'm in Los Angeles.
Dylan, what channel are they playing Baby Shark on?
And things were acting up. I thought everybody just quit all of a sudden. No, I hate to admit this, but the trolls overly exhausted a team of 28 moderators and 3 admins.
Surprisingly enough, the Ram Ranch was actually winning. It was changing the conversations, jamming their comms, diverting their manpower, all through just spamming the message that Ram Ranch really rocks. It's clear that the Freedom Convoy Zello communication was in a bad spot, but at the end of the day they still could communicate with each other, even if poorly, because even as exhausted as they were, the mods and server owners were there to support the cause and get the message through the spam. And as long as they kept that advantage over the Ram Ranch Resistance, the Freedom Convoy would come out on top. So it was a good thing that the Freedom Convoy only gave mod privileges to trusted members. That way it was impossible for the ranch to ever infiltrate. And that's where the star of the show arrives, a man that goes by Medixar, aka Canadian Medic, aka Tegan. He is Ripley's Believe It or Not, a Canadian medic residing in southern Ontario. Having his medical background and a family business in the blockade area, he was slightly peeved by all the unvaccinated protests going on, so he decided to download Zello and mess with them. However, he didn't go and do the traditional approach of spamming something stupid and getting banned. He had something bigger planned. He wanted to walk among them, pretending to be on the Freedom Convoy side and gain some trust. Within 2 days of activity and support, he already was a mod in the main ambassador bridge Zello. Medic continued the ruse of being a supporter while also posting some of the highlights they were saying in the mod chat onto his Facebook for others to laugh at. However, this got him approached by another mod who sent him a screenshot of the post he made and said,
He was like, yeah, so I have someone on the on this group that we need to find this because find this person because he's a mod and and we have a mole, and it was literally me.
Despite nearly being caught, he played it cool and avoided detection. He then continued to gain the trust of the mods and increased his reputation as an avid member of the convoy through his activity and discussions. He did so well, in fact, it actually became a slight problem. With him working on his own, he originally had no idea what the ramranchresistance was, and they didn't know Medic was on the same team. And due to his commitment to the role, he actually began getting some heat on Twitter.
So I started messaging the Ramranch resistance people that were trolling Medixar on Twitter, and I was like, hey, so listen up, like, I'm Medixar. Please don't troll me.
After explaining to the Ram Ranchers he was on their side, he began to discreetly feed them all the info he could about the convoy's locations and whatnot, while being careful not to alert his fellow mods. It was around this time the main ambassador bridge Zello had gotten so overrun by trolls that the mods decided to go dark and start a new secret Zello of who they believed to be trusted moderators to attempt to figure out what to do next.
There was the two groups. There was the one, it was the Windsor Convoy 2 group. That was the original one. And they shut that down because overloaded trolls. And then they created a secret group, which was called 519 Breakfast Time. And I was in there.
Of the 27 members invited, Medic was one of them, even in spite of only joining the Zello chat a few days prior. The leads of the Breakfast Time decided to wait until morning to start a new Ambassador Bridge Zello, but not were all seemingly on board with this strategy of constantly starting new chats all the time. Sensing a divide in the mods, Medic took advantage of this and splintered off with the mods that he knew would follow.
And Ray was not really pleased with how Chris was handling it, and so I knew that I could get to Ray, so I private messaged Ray. And I was like, hey, listen, man, I don't think Chris is handling this properly. He's not thinking about everybody. What are your feelings about it? I think that people need to be there because it's gonna. We need to boost up the morale. We need the supporters. That's what they live for. And then he got back. He's like, yeah, he's not handling it well. He's never, hardly ever here. He's always doing something. You're never able to find him. So then Ray and I was like, I'll make a group, and you and I could be the admins of the group and just start off and whatnot. So I was able to start turning Ray against Chris. Now, I went from just being a moderator.
It's like Trailer Park Survivor.
Moderator controls to actually being channel owner. Windsor.
And so you're a fucking troll, and you're running their chat to pass information on to everybody.
So I completely
in the protest. Oh my god!
I completely owned their communication network.
Now, Medic didn't just have mod controls, but he had admin controls of the new Ambassador Bridge Zello, the aptly named Convoy for Our Freedom Windsor 2. But rather than prematurely ranching, he continued to play the long game, allowing for the chat to grow through the word of convoy mouth and message boards. He even went to the protest to introduce himself to prominent convoy leads to further gain their trust. Eventually, the Zello managed to amass over 400 people active at any given time, and while this may not sound like much, it is important to note that these chats were typically full of people actually at the protests, and usually only peaked at around 250, so a chat of this scale is pretty impressive. This essentially made it the main communication hub for the convoy at the largest and most successful blockade that they've had. So to recap, in just a few days' time, Medic was the primary admin of the most used communication channel for his opposing party, the dream position of any troll. So people began to ask, what was next? How was he going to get them?
I didn't really have an end game, to be quite honest. I didn't.
With no real end game, he just decided, about time he ended this. So he let out a quick little teaser of what was to come.
Of course, I got my chicken nuggets. Who wouldn't finish chicken nuggets? My fries, on the other hand, McDonald's fries don't taste good cold. They're just like mush, cold mush.
Hey, Medic, what sauce you dipping it in?
Ram Ranch. Sorry, I had to. With all them trolling, I had to say it.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
He attempted to get as many people as he could to leave the protest peacefully by claiming to be a high-ranking army officer and saying that they were planning on arresting all those still protesting.
They aren't looking at
at what's happening on the bridge. They're looking at the trucks that are at the bottom of the bridge at college there, and they're calling that being blocking the trade and commerce, and deeming anybody who is part of anywhere there, whether it's inside the blockade or outside the blockade, that is throwing up this support, they are going to get rounded up in all this.
Then it was time. On February 11th, 2022, at 7:34 p.m., history was made. Medic stripped the moderator rights from everyone in the chat, and during the confusion, he came over the Zello call and said,
It's come to my attention that this group has been infiltrated. They set out to have one goal in mind, and the goal kind of worked its way in the inner circle, and it actually worked. Didn't actually think it was going to work. It was kind of a little too easy, if I'm being quite honest.
Cowboys wanted Cowboys in the showers at Ramranch. Cops throbbing hard.
You guys, like I was saying, are nitwits, trust too easily, and I got set out to what I had to do, and the cops are coming to hit hard. They have all the information they need. You guys are welcome. Ramranch resistance!
Why did he do it, you may ask?
Honestly, listen, I was just bored. And it just, I couldn't even tell you why I did it, other than just boredom.
Well, afterwards, Medic let the chat play out as all the Ramranch Resistance members that were hiding behind their truck sonas revealed themselves to celebrate. And just like that, the main and most successful Freedom Convoy Zello was destroyed, and never able to recover to such success for the remainder of the protests.
They're ramming it into us, their agenda, their liberal agenda.
He said Ramranch.
On the field, it wasn't going any better. They were losing their footing after holding it for the last 2 weeks, and after the Emergency Act came into effect on February 14th, the police were given the ability to move in and actually arrest those participating. They pushed the crowd back, taking their space, signs, and even their people. Their main source of income, which was from donations on the site GiveSendGo, was hacked, and the page was replaced by a clip of Frozen 2's song Frozen, with a scrolling text calling them all idiots. There were reports of counter-protesters stealing the convoy supplies like warm clothing and food and then donating them to nearby shelters. In a last-ditch effort, the protesters began to block areas off, but not with trucks this time, rather with snow forts built with a little bit of a Canadian flair, while also setting up some hot tubs and bouncy castles to keep the morale up. To fend off against the approaching policemen, they took up their to deter the horses because apparently horses don't like coyotes. With all the commotion, it's easy to forget that these truckers still need to sleep, and those trucks aren't nearly as comfortable as they may seem. Luckily, Mike Lindell, CEO of My Pillows, had heard of this problem and stated his intention to use a helicopter to airdrop his pillows to the ever-so-sleepy truckers. You may take this as reckless, but Mike assured that he would use tiny parachutes so that the pillows would get down safely to the truckers in need. Needless to say, this never happened, as the Canadian government stopped his shipment. But even with all that, they were not safe from the Ram Ranchers, as they came out and labeled their areas appropriately, flashed them with Ram Ranch branded signs, and, of course, to come and play the song.
Boy, Cox, Ram Ranch really rocks.
The situation for the convoy had only been getting worse, and with many seeing the end approaching, they left. And not long after, the hot tubs were abandoned and the bouncy castles had deflated. The convoy lost. With the Freedom Convoy gone, it leaves us with a question of, did the Ramranch Resistance actually do anything? Did the Ramranch blasting and their Ford Raptor trucks actually work? What can we learn from this? I don't know, and I don't really care, because none of us can say for certain whether the Ramranch attacks had actually done anything to aid against the fight against the Freedom Convoy. But what I do know is that it lowered their morale, used up their time, muddied their communications, and most importantly, told them that they're always welcome at the ranch. And to me, that's all that really matters. Hey, thanks for watching, and sorry it took so long to come out. I was just busy with life, you know how it is. Anyway, it's out, woohoo. And yeah, don't really have much to add about this one. It's pretty cut and dry. I just think that using Ramranch as audio warfare is really funny, so yeah, I didn't see any people making a video on it, so I'm like, hey, might as well take that spot. Same thing I did with CraveCon. No one talked about it, so I'm like, oh, I'll fill that void. But speaking about CraveCon, yeah, one video in, and I already got a nemesis. Awesome, right? Yeah, Ken Domick, not my biggest fan, I guess, even though I didn't really talk about him negatively, like, at all during the video. I said, what, he was egotistical, maybe a bit money-focused, but meh, those are pretty minor things. So, yeah. Here's all those comments I saved. Most of them had been deleted like 2 seconds after posting, and were all made by alt accounts, you know, with creation dates less than like 3 months. Or, well, yeah, I don't think I saw one over 3 months since its creation date. Spouting a bunch of Ken Domick pro stuff. Again, I don't even think I really egged on the guy too hard. But yeah. Ken Domick is my new nemesis. Here's all his comments. Most of them went straight to spam. I allowed them all through anyways because I thought they were really funny. So, yeah. There's that. Thank you, all you Ken Domick haters out there who came in and defended me and watched the video and all that. Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you guys stick around even though I'm not going to talk about Ken Domick anymore. And, yeah. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye.
18 naked, cowboy I'm ranging 18 naked, cowboy I'm ranging 18 naked, cowboy I'm ranging